First things first, we're still not talking about the Zoom R16 and how to record it, because although now I do have batteries, the unit isn't working. Just to avoid the same mistake last week that I had to rush everything to make a video, I'm going to do something else today. If I can't figure out during the weekend what is wrong with it, I'll fix it, and hey, you get 2 videos this week. But that's hopefully for later this week. So, a walking bass line, what is it? Well, basically it's a bass line where every single note gently follows up with the next one. So it's nothing special, it's nothing fancy, it's just a really cool and nice smooth transition that serves as a backing track to whatever the band is playing. You can use it in many styles, but probably it's most famous for big band music and jazz style music and stuff like that. The bass line you heard in the intro was of course Fly Me to the Moon, most famously performed by Frank Sinatra. For this lesson I'll be using something else, which is dubbed the Studio Chimiel Overture, which isn't actually an overture, it's just a walking bass line, but hey, what's in a name? So if you see me glance to my right, which is your left, it's because my iPad is standing here. I use it as a songbook, so I have the tab and the notes on there, but I'll share the tab for the full lesson and the things we'll see also in the comments below. Let's do the theory first, because if you want to not only play a walking bass line but also write one, it's always nice to have the knowledge of how to do it. It is theory, so I am going to use actual musical terms. If you're not familiar with them, I'll do my best to explain them, but it's just basics. Actually, if they're not that clear, let me know in the comments, and then I'll actually do a really basic what is bass notation or what is music notation video. Anyway, let's have a look at those first 4 measures. You can clearly see we have 16 notes, neatly divided, 4 notes per measure. So this is the most basic form of a 4/4, and in our walking bass line it's really the root of whatever we're doing. Now if we take a look at the first measure in detail, for the first 4 notes we have there's actually a rule on how to progress through a walking bass line. The first note you see is always the root note we have. So in this example it's an A. Our walking bass line is in A. Whether it's a minor or a major or a 7th or a diminished, we're not looking at that just yet. First note, always the root note. From there we jump to the 3rd note you see. The 3rd note is what gives color to our walking bass line. There we do decide whether it's a minor, whether it's a major, or what we intend to do with our note. So in our example we have here, we're going from an A to a C, which means we're going on a minor walking bass line. Then we of course also have our 2nd note and our 4th note. Those are called passing notes, so we use those notes to go from note 1 to note 3. In our example here, from 1 to 3, did a little joke there, from 1 to 3. On the 2nd note we use a B. On the 4th note, which is also a passing note, there's a little added bonus you can do to make it all nicer, to make it sound not complex, but give it a richer sound, and that is try to fit in a 5th in there. I know the bass jokes, well, it's not bass jokes, it's all sorts of jokes. Always avoid the 5ths. Don't avoid the 5ths. The 5ths are our friends. The 5ths make it nice and easy and simple. So in our example we have here, we go from our root note to a 2nd, to a minor 3rd, so we have a minor chord, to a 5th. 2nd measure, we finished on a D in the 1st measure, so we're going to an E on the 2nd measure. From the E we look at the 3rd note. The 3rd note here is a G, so again we're still in a minor. And we have our two filler notes. Well, we don't have to always take the direct road again. Fifths are our friends, so we're going from an E to an A, which is actually our root note here, back to the G, and from the G we skip down to the F. Anyway, we took our bass line up, so let's just walk down with it. We had our E, we go back to the D, we go back to the C, and we go back to the B. Plain and easy. Last measure in our example, we get out another trick in our bag. We start on an A and we just take the octave A before going back to the G, and actually while we're still down there on the bass, back to the A. That easy. Question some of you might have is, why are you using the 5th fret rather than the open A string? Force of habit. If you look at the pattern, we have the 2, 3 and the 5, so it's all within one position. If you're used to it, it comes fairly natural, I find myself. So if you prefer to use the open strings, go right ahead. I personally prefer to use my pinky whenever I can. First thing you can do flavor-wise is to put some accents on those first notes. Those are our root notes, those decide what we do, and they add a little flair to whatever we're playing. In this example here, I'm switching from a quarter note to 2 8 notes, so it's just doubling the first note. But if you listen, in my opinion, it does sound a little forced. So it's a good idea, but let's work on it. Using our ID we had on the example with the 8 notes, let's delve in a little bit deeper and let's really add some flavor to it. Now we're going into the real mathematics of classical music. If you look at it, you see that we have a dotted note and we have a 16th note. So in case you don't know, a dotted note means you add half of the value the note has. So example, a full note dotted would be 1.5. A half note dotted would be a half and a quarter, so 0.75 or 3/4 of a note. Quarter note dotted would mean quarter note with an 8. So each time, and that's the easiest way to remember it, it's each time one down the scale length, well, not the scale length, because then we're back in Finland with Flat and his fish scale length, what we're still waiting for. We had our 8th note, so if we halve that, we still need another 16 notes. So we have an 8 with a 16th and a separate 16th. Does that make any sense? If it doesn't, just listen to what I just played. That makes a lot more sense, and I bet you'll also feel the groove, feel the joy, well, not the joy, feel the in verse what we had in the previous example. So rather than a dotted 8 with a 16th, we did the 16th first with the dotted 8, which makes the attack faster. However, my personal opinion again, certainly for a walking bass line, it's nicer to have that lingering note. So start with that with that 8 dotted note, and then push in the 16th note before going to the second note. So that's a bit of theory on how to approach a walking bass line. If you don't mind me, I'm going to take my bass for a walk. See you next week, or if I get the Zoom fixed, see you somewhere in this week. See you next time. Let's keep it at that. The third note there is a G, so between the E and the G we're going to use the F. So we have E, F, G, and from the G Nope, sorry. Lying. Anyway, it's just the time signature, not the time signature. I'm trying to think of the right word. We had our 8th note. Sorry, I'm really losing it here. Sorry, lost for words there.